And now for part 3 on this series on radiometric dating, as written by Dr. Andrew Snelling on the Answers in Genesis website. Um, Before I get started with the third part, I think we're due for a little bit of a recap of parts 1 and 2. In part 1, we saw a bit of casual misinformation from Snelling here, where he did present at times a honest and good factual case for radioactive decay, how it works, and the different dating methods, but we also saw that he was willing, or just simply not informed well enough, to let a few mistakes slip in. At the time I called that sinister, and I still think it is, especially in light of part 2, but we saw that small mistakes were perfectly acceptable, and what that's going to end up doing is misinform the sheeple who are going to go read this and think that they know how science works. In part 2, we saw that we should no longer be calling Andrew Snelling doctor, because he admitted at the very end, followed by a very loud clap when I really did sting my palms severely and clapped directly over the microphone. We saw that he's not writing in his capacity as a geologist. He's Mr. Andrew Snelling as he writes this. He admitted openly and seemingly proudly that he doesn't care what the truth is. He already has his conclusion, and therefore anything that reality has to say is unimportant. A good analogy for that, if you think that that's not a real problem, imagine in court. There's a person who stands accused of murder, and the prosecution goes up to the judge and begins to make the case. Your Honor, there is no evidence whatsoever that the accused is guilty. But come on! You and I both know he is. That's not really a convincing case, and yet that's exactly how Mr. Snelling admits he's proceeding in part 2. So let's see if he puts the casual misinformation of part 1 and the outright dishonesty of part 2 together in part 3 to lead to the conclusion that we're pretty sure a creationist is going to get to. Science is wrong, therefore the Bible. And starting from the very top, before the 3-part little inset, radiometric dating methods sometimes yield conflicting results if you use them incorrectly. But the technique itself is scientific and reliable. Yeah, it's a dating method. Of course it's scientific. What the fuck you think it is, voodoo? And once the results are interpreted in a biblical framework, no. See, the results stand for themselves. You don't have to make them fit something. That's unscientific. The method, he seems to admit, is scientific and reliable, right after saying that it's not always reliable because the results conflict. This guy's an idiot. But if you interpret them according to a foregone conclusion, you have stopped doing science. See what I mean about Mr. Snelling, not doctor? They yield clear patterns that help us understand the Earth's history since creation 6,000 years ago. No, Claire Patterson would have a major bone to pick with you, bonehead. So, part 3. This 3-part series will help you properly understand radiometric dating, the assumptions that lead to inaccurate dates, and the clues about what really happened in the past. So now we know what we're in for. Part 2 of this series showed that the same rocks can yield very different ages depending on which radiometric dating technique you use. I thought we were talking about part 3 now, but he's going back to part 2. Good job. Recaps are my job, mister. Going over this again, it's been over a week for me, I think. Didn't have the free time, so I don't fully remember what was all in part 2. But if 2 different dating methods give you different years, that's because dating methods work specific ways. You can't always, let's say one dating method gives you 20,000 year increments, and the other one gives you 3,000 year increments. One's going to give you 40,000 years, and the other one, 39 or 42, because it's multiples of 3. So the dates are going to be wrong simply because of the increments, but 40 or 39 or 42, that's in the same ballpark. They're not conflicting results in that there's different levels of accuracy. Which are used... skipped a little bit ahead. These inconsistent results are not inconsistent, are due to the problems of inheritance and contamination, he has asserted repeatedly, with no fucking basis in reality. Besides the fact that, yeah, some contamination will occur, but he's talking about wildly changing and inconsistent contamination and errors everywhere all the time. It's... Where's he pulling that from? I think we all know. Which caused the rock's chemistry to differ from the assumptions of standard radioactive clocks. There's again with the quotes around innocuous words for some reason. I don't really know if it changes the rock's chemistry. Would you call that chemistry? The composition? I guess you could, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's the right word. I would go for composition, like I would have gone for usually instead of always when he was talking about radioactive decay turning into a different element. But, you know, Mr. Snelling is not known for his accuracy or care about honesty. Furthermore, new evidence indicates that radioactive elements in rocks, which are used to date the rocks, decayed at much faster rates during past events in the last 6,000 years. Citation needed? In part 2, we already saw what that new evidence was. The Bible says so. That's not a very good bit of evidence. In fact, that's not evidence. That's barely even a claim. That's a noise. So there isn't actually evidence that indicates this, and he doesn't seem to mention it here. Maybe you'll get to it later. But, you know, a little notation. You used them in part 2, dude. Just put a little notation. Put a link to some other paper that you wrote that you had published that proves that what you said is true because you said it. Or something, you know. Be consistently dishonest, you dumb son of a bitch. So the claimed ages of many millions of years, which are based on today's slow decay rates, on the observable decay rates of which there is no reason to think they ever changed, are totally unreliable because the Bible, and that is the only thing. Does this mean we should throw out the radioactive clocks? No quotes this time. Good job, Mr. Snelling. Surprisingly, they are useful. I certainly fucking hope so. The general principles of using radioisotopes to date rocks are sound. Well, thank you for watching this series. Oh, wait. We're barely in the introduction. Oh, boy. It's just that the assumptions have been wrong. No, they haven't. And led to exaggerated dates. No, they have not. While the clocks cannot... Again, no quotes. He's starting to learn. I wished. Knowing that that's not the case. Cannot yield... I'll start over. While the clocks cannot yield absolute dates for rocks, they can provide relative ages that allow us to compare any two rock units and know which one formed first. So, if you compare two rock units and one formed 10,000 years ago and the other one formed 25 million years ago, yes, I nearly said billion, you know that the Earth is 6,000 years old because the Bible says so. Snelling is a moron. They allow us to compare rock units in different areas of the world to find which ones formed at the same time. According to you, dipshit, they all formed at the same fucking time, except for volcanic rocks, and volcanic rock takes a very long period of time to decay into dirt, and so, fucking moron, you're just saying here that there is no fucking difference in any rock dates. I mean, that's my interpretation of him making an ass of himself. Maybe I'm wrong. A little bit. Furthermore, if physicists examine why the same rocks yield different dates, they may discover new clues about the unusual behavior of radioactive elements during the past. Oh, they may. May they? Really? So it's not like they have. It's that if they examined why, they may find the answer. So you're admitting there's no evidence. I thought you said that there was evidence, new evidence, that indicated this. Now you're saying it hasn't been found yet. Good job, jackass. I'm 5 paragraphs in. 5 paragraphs into this fucking article, and I'm already starting to get pissed off. Good start. I really felt like doing this today, and now I'm starting to reconsider. With the help of this growing body of information, which you just fucking said doesn't exist yet because fucking hell, dude. Creation geologists... Those two words are actually next to each other there. Creation geologists. That is golden. Oh. Except he doesn't believe in gold because, just poof magic, everything's the same. Hope to piece together a better understanding of the precise sequence of events in Earth's history from Creation Week, like Shark Week on the non-Discovery Channel, to the Flood, I guess he plays Halo, and beyond. I haven't played that game, and neither has he because he didn't capitalize the B. Different dates for the same rocks. The first section, maybe he's going to address that point I mentioned before now. Usually, geologists do not use all 4 main radioactive clocks to date a rock unit. This is considered an unnecessary waste of time and money. I guess, yeah, because all the dating methods cross-confirm each other, and you don't really have the budget to do 4 tests to find the same fucking result. If one result is reasonably accurate and is confirmed by the other 3, why would you do all 4? It's like buying 5 paternity tests by different companies that all use the same chemical composition to give you the same fucking result. Sure, you might get a false positive in one of them, but more than one, really, the false positives are rare, and if you do 2, you're like guaranteed. So why do all 4? I mean, it's just basic sense. I suspect, though, casual misinformation, remember, that this is leading up to, they don't want you to know. After all, if these clocks really do work, again, no quotes, then they should all yield the same age for a given rock unit, within margins of error. I mean, like I said, the different dating methods have different levels of accuracy, so they cross-confirm, but they don't give you the same result. Sometimes, though, using different parent radioisotopes to date different samples or minerals of the same rock unit does yield different ages, hinting that something is amiss. There's a notation. Let's go see the notation. Precise uranium, lead, mineral ages, rubidium, strontium, and then SM, ND, neodymium. I don't remember what the SM one is. Systematics of the Great Dyke Zimbabwe, constraints on late Archean events in the Zimbabwe, Craton, and Limpopo Belt. Precambrian research. Multi-element geochronic study of the Great Dyke Zimbabwe. Significance of robust and reset ages. Earth and planetary science letters. Yeah, looks like a real paper. At least it wasn't written by Snelling this time. So, all that notation tells me is not that there's something amiss. It's that there are sometimes different ages for different rocks. The notation doesn't say, science is wrong, here's a secret paper. It says, here are the different results that we get in different dating methods. I've already explained twice now, if you have one that gives you 20,000 year increments and one that gives you 3,000 year increments, you're never going to get the same result. But they might be very close to each other within a margin of error. So, sure, that notation might be legit. I don't know. I didn't see the word creation in there once, but still, it doesn't actually make a case. He's using a he's doing the same thing I used to do in grade school. You remember those essays that you had to write and you had to provide 2 or 3 references and you had to use references? Absolutely. You know what I would do? Because I never knew how to do references, and I admitted in the part 1 of this series, I don't know how to do research. So what did I do? I bullshitted my way through every single fucking essay. I remember using once a a reference to the dictionary to a word I used in a sentence. It was a reference, it worked, but it's not exactly like the reference did anything for my article. I used a complicated word that someone my age probably shouldn't have known. I read a lot, and then I pointed to the dictionary to say, here's the word I referenced in the dictionary. This is the kind of thing he's doing. It is a reference, but it's a reference that really has nothing to do with his fucking point. Continuing, recently, creationist researchers... Oh, he keeps doing that. I'm going to have to start training myself not to laugh when there's these, like, honest lawyer comments that are so easy to make. Creationist researchers have utilized all 4 common radioactive clocks to date the same samples from the rock units. So usually they don't, but they did. Except they're creationist research. Oh, and of course the notation, the footnote, leads to his own fucking body of work. I can use quotes too around words, Snelling. Creationist researchers, meaning myself, said the creationist researcher, lying through his teeth, have used all 4 dating methods to date the same samples from the same rock units. Among these were 4 rock units far down in the Grand Canyon rock sequence, pointing to figure 1, chosen because they are well known and characterized. These were as follows: Cardenas basalt, lava flows deep in the East Canyon sequence. Base or Bass Rapids diabase sill, where the basalt magma squeezed between layers and cooled. Brahma amphibolites, basalt lava flows deep in the canyon sequence that later metamorphosed. Elves Chasm granodiorite, a granite regarded as the oldest canyon rock unit. Table 1 lists the dates obtained from each rock unit. Figure 6, see below, graphically illustrates the range of the supposed ages of these rock units, blah, blah, blah. See the figure for yourself if you really want to. I don't actually know where figure 6 is because Oh, okay, it's in an inset. Figure 6 and 7, they're this big on my fucking screen. I can't even see words there. I think that first word is and. What the fuck? Okay, so, he did tests and it gave him results. I guess I should be intellectually honest and, oh, holy shit. Even the larger, let me zoom in here. Oh, that word I thought was and, it's just. That's how small it is. And of course it's all tilted to the side. Let me zoom in even more. I'm at 400% zoom and I can finally start reading. Rubidium strontium, samarium neodymium, that's the SM from before. Uranium lead. Okay, so there's a bunch of dates here for millions of years. Potassium argon gives 516 million years. Rubidium strontium gives 1,111 million years for the Cardenas basalt. And samarium neodymium gives 1,588 years. 1,588. That's a huge, wide difference in all the dates. Is that what he actually got? Do I have any way of verifying this? Is he just saying that? I don't know. But let's look at the one where he actually did use all 4. Bass Rapids diabase sill, the second one in his little table. Potassium argon comes in at 842 million years. Rubidium strontium comes at just over 1,000 years. Uranium lead, 1,200 years. And samarium neodymium, 1,379 million years. Very tightly packed group. Sure, there's a variance of 500 million years between one and the other, but I've already explained how the different dating methods have different ranges. So, I have no reason to think his data is accurate. Even if it's inaccurate, well, if it's inaccurate, he's just talking out of his ass, which he has done before, so what the fuck do I care? But let's say it is accurate. He's showing different dating methods that have different scaling coefficients, or whatever you want to call them, and they all give different dates. That's exactly like, going back to my example, of expecting something that has 20,000 year increments and something that has 3,000 year increments to give you 15. It can't. The fact that they're tightly packed like that, and different dating methods, where instead of 6 billion years ago and like last Tuesday, it means they're still tightly fucking packed. This is millions of years. Radiometric dating is not 100% accurate. There is a margin of error. But real scientists can account for that, and this guy's just comparing apples to oranges and saying, look, they're not the same color! We know, dipshit. It doesn't prove anything. So going back to where he was referring to figure 6, it is immediately apparent that the ages for each rock unit do not agree. Yes. Are they wildly different? No, they're usually tightly packed. The first one is the oddest one, with a large split between the first and second methods, but all the other ones are pretty close together. Indeed, in the Cardanus basalt, Cardanus basalt is the worst one. I don't know if he fucked up his test or what, but in the Cardanus basalt, for example, the samarium neodymium age is 3 times the potassium argon age. Apples to oranges, dipshit. Nevertheless, the ages follow 3 obvious patterns. They're all close together. The dating methods are all different, so the results shouldn't be the same. And this guy has given us no reason to accept that his dates are actually accurate. Let me use an example from my own work experience. I was an assistant lab tech before my illness, and I hope to be again soon, if I can shed some poundage. Tylenol and Advil. Now, extra strength Tylenol is 500 milligrams. Extra strength Advil is, 200? I think it's 200 milligrams. Clearly, then, Tylenol is stronger, right? It's headache medication. Tylenol and Advil are headache medication. Tylenol gives you 500 milligrams and Advil gives you 200. Does that make sense to you? Because it shouldn't. Because it's a different molecule. One's an analgesic, Tylenol. The other one's an anti-inflammatory, Advil. Tylenol, you can take 1 gram, 2 extra strength pills. Advil, you can take 2 extra strength pills as well, or caplets or whatever, for 400 milligrams. That's still less than half. But Advil, because it's an anti-inflammatory, can ruin your stomach if you don't take it while eating, whereas Tylenol is kind of weak sauce. Because they're 2 different molecules, because they have 2 different mechanisms of action, looking at the milligrams does nothing for you. And it gets even worse. Sometimes one antidepressant compared to another antidepressant, you might take 40 milligrams of one but only 2 of the other. And they might be considered equal in strength, because the number that they're given, the number of milligrams you have to take to get the dose, isn't a function of this many milligrams equals this amount of strength universally. It always changes depending on the molecule, the mechanism of action. That's why your Tylenol is sold over the counter, because it's not really that strong. But something like oxycodone, where's my bottle? I have oxycodone here somewhere. Yeah, my little oxycodone here. I had surgery. I mean, I still have some left, like in February, so I'm not addicted, I promise. Oxycodone like that. Is that oxycodone? That's hydromorphone. I forget. I have the original. It's confusing. But that is 1 milligram. These are 1 milligram pills. Just 1 milligram. This, compared to Tylenol, 500 milligrams of Tylenol compared to this, I'll take this for pain. And my pain will be completely gone, for a good long while. Tylenol does nothing for me. The number does nothing is the point. If you look just at the numbers, Tylenol is 100 times stronger, 500 times stronger than hydromorphone. No, it's not. He's comparing apples to oranges. He's looking at just the raw age in years and not going, okay, what's the factor that might affect this? Is potassium argon good for this type of rock? Maybe it's a surface rock that's been exposed to the elements that has sunlight hitting it, that argon in the atmosphere is sticking to the rock, whereas a different composition of rock. His own fucking claim about contamination applies to his own fucking test, as far as I'm aware, as far as is possible. He has no control for this. He is a geologist, but he's doing stuff to prove that science is wrong, not to get the result or try to understand them. Saying Tylenol is 500 milligrams, hydromorphone is 1, therefore Tylenol is stronger, is what he's doing here, and it's garbage. It offends me as someone who knows at least a little bit of what I'm talking about when it comes to, well, I'm not claiming to be a pharmacist because I'm not. I learned by osmosis while I was working, but as someone who at least knows that tiny little bit and has had to explain 40 milligrams of an antidepressant might not be stronger than 2 milligrams of a different one, as someone who's had to explain that to family and friends, this insults my intelligence, which, considering I'm on a Creationist website, I really should get over it and move on. Nevertheless, continuing now, the ages follow 3 obvious patterns. 2 techniques, potassium argon age and rubidium strontium, always yield younger dates than 2 other techniques, uranium lead and samarium neodymium. Do I need to go back over that entirely too long expose that I did on medication and milligrams and why they're not an indicator of potency? Because that's exactly the same thing again. Furthermore, the potassium argon ages are always younger than the rubidium strontium ages, and often the samarium neodymium ages are younger than the uranium lead ages. And often. So it's always, and sometimes. Again, not the most convincing guy. But here's the thing. The fact that he can see these patterns where this one is always before and that one's always after and that one's always after shows that the dating methods are actually reliable. He's proving his own fucking argument incorrect without mentioning it. I guess he has just that level of self-awareness. He is admitting that these things are reliable. There is a reason for one being always younger and the other one always being older, and there's a reason for that. But he takes it as, oh, this proves science is bullshit. Whereas he should take it as, there's a reason that I'm not explaining, and I'm being a dishonest sack of shit by not trying to find out. What then do these patterns mean? All the radioactive clocks in each rock unit should have started ticking, we're back to this again, at the same time. Not if they were produced by different stars exploding and scattering the radioactive material all through space, which would then form in a planet. Or if, volcanoes would draw it up out of the core of the Earth and stuff like that. So, like I said earlier, he thinks every single test should give the same age except for volcanic rock. But here he is saying, when I said earlier to insult his stupidity as if that's a mark on science. So, really pissing me off, this guy. All the radioactive clocks in each rock unit should have started ticking at the same time the instant that each rock unit was formed. And it did. They just didn't form at the same fucking time. So how do we explain that they each recorded different ages? Because one clock is in seconds and the other one's in weeks, dipshit. The absolute... Wow, the Anselm. The Anselm! The answer is simple but profound. He thinks, incorrectly, as a lot of things, each of the radioactive elements must have decayed at different, faster rates in the past. No, that dipshit, that's not how it works. If they decayed at faster rates in the past, they would still have decayed at the same fucking rates because it would have been faster, unless his claim is that they each wildly decayed at different rates, but universally the same elements did decay at a different rate than now, but always that element the same decay rate but different from another one. So he's talking about a chaotic, nonsensical universe that it is impossible to prove existed, and that doesn't make sense, and yet yields results today where the decay rates, if you account for chaotic mess centuries, because let's face it, it's not millennia, if you account for chaotic mess centuries, then they, at 6,000 years ago when the Earth was created, they all started working exactly the same way. It's like, how the fuck do you make sense of this? Everything works the same, and all of a sudden, pew! Fireworks! This is so stupid. I am beginning to have a headache. Where's my Tylenol? I'm not taking oxycodone for a headache. That's stupid. Oh boy. Okay, let's get through this. We're not even through part 1 yet. Part 1 of 3 of part 3. Part whatever. You get the point. In the case of the Cardenas basalt, the one with the worst results that he claims he got, while the potassium-argon clock ticked through 516 million years, 2 other clocks ticked through 1,111 million years, and 1.5, 1.6 million years. Oh, sorry, 1,000 billion years. So if these clocks ticked at such different rates in the past, they didn't. The dating methods give you inconsistent results because you're comparing apples to oranges and a clock that works in seconds to a clock that works in weeks. Not only are they inaccurate, they cross-confirm, but these rocks may not be millions of years old. Where the fuck do you get that garbage? This clock clearly says that this rock is 516 million years old. Therefore, it's 6,000 years old. But how could radioactive decay rates have been different in the past? Short answer, they couldn't. Because you're dumb, Snelling. Creationist researchers don't fully understand yet anything. Creationist researchers is an oxymoron. It is a self-contradicting term. You cannot have such a thing as a creationist researcher. You can have a researcher or you can have a creationist who lies about the research. He's saying new evidence proves that this was the case. We don't know how. We don't know it. There's no evidence yet. The tests haven't been done. For fuck's sake. However, he says, the observed age patterns provide clues. No, they don't. They provide clues that you're a fucking idiot who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Even worse than me, who is an admitted layman who has forgotten more about his high school science class than you clearly ever knew, dipshit. This is not good for my heart. Not good for my heart at all. Potassium and rubidium decay radioactively by the process known as beta decay, whereas uranium and neodymium decay via alpha decay. So what you're saying is, you're comparing apples to oranges? And they're different? Impressive. Do go on. The former always gives younger ages. I wonder why that is, Snelling. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that you're comparing apples to oranges, you fucking moron! We see another pattern. Ow, my throat. We see another pattern within beta decay. Potassium today decays faster than rubidium and always gives younger ages. And no, I'm not intentionally trying to change my voice. I hurt my throat just then. I don't even remember what I just read. Potassium today decays faster than rubidium and always gives younger ages. Different elements decay at different rates. They always have. They've always decayed at those rates. There's no reason to think otherwise. You're saying that everything decayed at the same rate up until today, 6,000 years ago, today in terms of universal time. And then, just to fuck with scientists, the decay rate started becoming different. It was super fast and all the same in the past, which is exactly the opposite of what you said earlier, for fuck's sake. Both of these patterns suggest something has happened in the past inside the nuclei of these parent atoms to accelerate their decay. No, it does not suggest that. That is not even implied. I don't even know where the fuck you could get that. You have the Bible that tells you the earth is 6,000 years old, and you have decay rates that say otherwise. You are trying to fit the different decay rates into the Bible and going, well, it had to be different somehow. That's not suggestive. That's stupid. What the fuck is suggesting that something happened in the past inside the nuclei of every single fucking atom in the existence of the entire fucking universe? And why is it the same thing? The answer, of course, is God magic. God uses his little magic wand and went in every single atom, individually, every single one. Which one are you? You're potassium? That one. Okay. Get a kit for potassium 27. I don't remember the numbers. Yeah, we need another kit here. Mass produce those. There's a lot of potassium to go. Nothing suggests that. The decay rate varied based on the stability or instability of the parent atoms. Exactly. Finally, some accurate information. The decay rate is based on the stability or instability of the parent atoms. That's the truth. That is the case. That is what explains all of his results. That is what explains every fucking thing he's been complaining about. Research is continuing. Not if you're doing it, Snelling, because clearly, in this fucking previous 2 paragraphs, you openly contradict yourself multiple times and admit that you aren't actually doing any fucking research in part 2 at the very end when you say the Bible is true and that's all I care about. Relative ages. Next part. Look again at figure 1, which is a geologic diagram depicting the rock layers in the walls of the Grand Canyon, along with the rock units deep in the inner gorge along the Colorado River. This diagram shows that the radiometric dating methods accurately show the top rock layer is younger than the layers beneath it. So, in other words, radiometric dating is accurate and reliable. That's logical because the sediment making up that layer, I detect a flood myth coming up, was deposited on top of and therefore after the rock layers, just the layers below. So it was deposited on top of and therefore after the layers below. So far, so good. So reading this diagram tells us basic information about the time that rock layers and rock units were formed relative to others. Yes, they do, Snelling. Yes, they do exactly say that. Which is why we know the creation myth is garbage, because you think everything popped into existence at once. No layers. Boom. Even in the flood. Boom. All the layers, same time. Dipshit. I know the flood is coming. I don't know when. I haven't read before. I can feel the flood myth coming up soon. I don't know when, but I know that it's going to come soon. He's saying different layers show different ages. But he says they're all made at the same fucking time in the creation and then in the flood. I know that's coming. So he's contradicting the flood myth. Right here, he is not a Christian. You should not listen to him, Answers in Genesis. He has just refuted the creation myth, the flood myth, both of them at the same time. I love it when creationists do my job for me. Uh, so reading this diagram tells us basic information about the time that rock layers and rock layers units were formed relative to the other layers. Based on the radioactive clocks, we can conclude that these 4 rock units deep in the gorge, Table 1, are all older in a relative sense than the horizontal sedimentary layers in the canyon walls. Let me go over that again because it seems correct. Based on the radioactive clocks, we can conclude that these 4 rock layers unit deep in the gorge, Table 1, are all older in a relative sense than the horizontal sediment layers in the canyon walls. Sure. If I go back to his figure 6, the dates do have a younger, older type of pattern. So he has different layers, and I think the top one and the bottom one are from younger to older. Makes sense to me. That's exactly what I should expect based on, the geologic column, which is a real thing. It's not necessarily complete everywhere, but it certainly is a thing. And it's nice to know that a creationist actually accepts the geologic column while trying to disprove it. So, continuing now. Conventionally, the lowermost or oldest of these horizontal sedimentary layers is labeled early to middle Cambrian. Notation 3. Grand Canyon Geology, printed by Oxford University Press. I have no reason to think this one is bullshit, so good for him. And thus regarded as about 510 to 520 million years old. Notation 4. A Geologic Timescale, 2004, Cambridge University Press. Again, I have no issue with that date at all. All the rocks below it are then labeled Precambrian and regarded as older than 542 million years. Notice how there's no footnote this time, because that is garbage. The rocks below the Precambrian layer may very well be labeled as Precambrian. They might also be tested and then found to be Precambrian, but he's just saying, no, we did half of it and the rest is all older. Fuck it. That's not how scientists works. That's how creationist researchers work. Actual scientists do the work. They test things. And if something is Precambrian, and Precambrian is anything older than 520 million years old, or 542 million years old, then guess what? Yeah, anything Precambrian is going to be labeled Precambrian. The fact that there's no footnote shows that he doesn't have a source here. He's trying to imply they're just lazy assholes lying to you, but in reality, he doesn't have anything to back up this claim. So accordingly, all 4 dated rock units are also Precambrian. Well, if I go back to the figure and I zoom in really closely, the Cardenas basalt is 516, so that outlier might not necessarily be the best indicator of the age, whereas the other 2 are Precambrian, but sure, okay, according to all 4 dated rock units, yeah, they're all older than Precambrian, for the most part. And apart from the potassium-argon age for the Cardenas basalt, all the radioactive clocks have correctly shown that these 4 rock units were formed earlier than Cambrian, so they are Precambrian, as I just said. So far so good. Parentheses, but the passage of time between these Precambrian rock units and the horizontal sedimentary layers above them was a maximum of about 1,700 years. The time between creation and the flood, not millions of years. No, that's what you believe. The evidence shows differences of millions of years, jackass. You can't just say, actually, I know exactly what he's going to say, and I'm going to look it up to see if I'm right. The oldest date is uranium lead for the Elves Chasm granodiorite with 1933. The lowest date for the Bass Rapids or Base Rapids diabase sill is 842 million years. So that's a difference about 1,100 million years. The 516 figure, the Cardanus outlier, the one that's really weirdly off, is, well, actually, the samarium neodymium might be the one that's off, but let's go back to the potassium. 500, about 2,000. So there's a difference of 1,500 million years. 1.5 start working, brain. 1.5 billion year difference, or 1,500 million. Yeah, 1,500 million, 1,700 years. Do you see what I'm trying to get at here? He's using millions of years, cutting the million, and saying it's 1,700. That means it's not millions of years. And if I'm mumbling, then it's because that's really his argument. He's removing the word million to make it look like it's just years. But it's not. There's a difference of about a billion years between the top and bottom one. And yet, he's saying that it's just less than 2,000 years. No, it's not. You forgot the million, dipshit. Similarly, continuing now, in the relative sense, the Brahma, and I'm surprised to see a creationist Christian bring up the name of a different god. In the relative sense, the Brahma amphibolites and Elves Chasm granodiorite, or whatever it's called, are older by hours or days. You measured the differences as millions of years, and here you're saying the difference is hours or days. See what I mean about dishonesty? Creative, casual misinformation? Similarly, in the relative sense, the Brahma amphibolites and Elves Chasm granodiorite are older by hours or days than the Cardanus basalt and Bass Rapids diabase sill. Not by hours or days, but yeah. You know, you're just off by a factor of billions and billions and billions of tens of billions and thousands of billions. I mean, hours compared to millions of years. Creationist math, worse than mine. Once again, the radioactive clocks have correctly shown that those two rock units are older than the rock units above by millions of years. Many, many millions, hundreds of millions of years, not hours. Get a fucking clue what the difference is, Mr. Snelling. How the fuck did this guy get his PhD by just lying on every test, he thinks? I'm starting to question if his PhD is legitimate. I know why he's certainly not working as a geologist. Why then should we expect the radioactive clocks to yield relative ages that follow a logical pattern? If you're a creationist, you fucking shouldn't, and yet you do, which means you know that your creationist garbage is garbage. Actually, younger sedimentary layers yield a similar in general pattern. Notation 5. Creation Research Society. I don't give a shit what that says. Figure 7. The answer is again simple but profound. Snelling is a liar. Why then should we expect the radioactive clocks to yield relative ages that follow a logical pattern? Because they're not created all at once and some of them are older than the others, dipshit. The radioactive clocks in the rock units at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you mean the rocks, formed during Creation Week, you mean not Creation Week because there was no fucking thing. No such fucking thing. I skip words sometimes. It happens now. It's due to being sick, I guess. We have been ticking for longer than the radioactive clocks in the younger sedimentary layers higher up in the sequence that were formed later during the flood. So, we now have a third contradictory view of what happened. All the rock layers formed at once. The bottom one, the radioactive decay clock, started ticking first. And then, hours or days later, the second layer, that clock started ticking at a different rate. And then, hours or days later, during the flood in Creation Week, that layer started ticking again at a different rate, and then up and up and up until you get to the top one. Third contradictory view of reality. Because he's so desperate to fit this to the Bible that he doesn't give a shit what he says before, as long as he can bullshit his way through this one. This is exactly how I did every single fucking essay in school. Every oral presentation, every fucking written essay, I just goddamn improvised, and I did better than this dumb son of a bitch. I was really good at bullshitting my way through it. It's a skill I'm still proud of today. I shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be, because that didn't help me learn how to research. But goddamn, was it useful in school. It's even useful now. I'm doing it now. Oh boy. Conclusion. I thought there was going to be 3 parts to this one. He said there would be 3 parts, but there was different dates for the same rocks, relative ages, and now the conclusion. Conclusion is not a part. It's a recap. I mean, learn writing skills. Even I know this shit, and I just said I bullshitted my way through all of it, for fuck's sake. Conclusion. Although it is a mistake to be a creationist researcher, to accept radioactive decay rates of millions of years, the clocks can still be useful to us, in principle, to date the relative sequence of rock formation during Earth history. Not in principle, in practice. This is how stuff is dated. Scientists don't look at, well, that rock's older than this one, so let's, that one's 560 million years old, and the one on Earth's like 800 million. Who gives a shit? That's not how fucking scientists fucking work. Yeah, this desk is going to shake a little bit. Sorry about that. The different clocks have ticked at different faster rates in the past, he says, with not a single shred of evidence, having repeatedly admitted that the research hasn't been done, that there's new evidence but he can't name it, and that scientists just haven't actually tried to find that out, and that research is continuing, and then contradicted himself repeatedly. So the standard old ages are certainly not accurate, correct, or absolute. While they are not absolute, but they are relatively accurate to your 3 different fucking takes, and they are more correct than you just comparing apples to oranges, going, they're different, so scientists just make a bunch of... However, because the radioactive clocks and rocks that formed early in Earth history have been ticking longer, when he says at Creation Week, poof, everything existed at once, they should all have been ticking from the same point, they should generally yield older radioactive ages than rock layers formed later. But you don't think that there were rock layers formed later, dipshit. You think Creation Week, boom, all of them at once. Remember, you fucking simpleton? So it is possible that relative radioactive ages of rocks, in addition to mineral contents and other rock features, could be used to compare and correlate similar rocks in other areas to find which ones formed at the same time during the events detailed in Genesis, God's eyewitness account of Earth history. There's so much wrong with that sentence, I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to reread it and go point by point. So it is possible that relative radioactive ages of rocks, possible doesn't mean anything. You're just tossing shit out and seeing what sticks. That's what this word possible means. It could be this, it could be this, it could be this. I don't know which it is. It could be any of those. It's just not the real thing. That's what that possible means. So, first off, fuck you for that. In addition to mineral contents and other rock features, I'm not enough of a geologist to know exactly how that's wrong, but I can think of a few things. In your rock unit, if you have different minerals, that's a sign of amalgamation, usually in a volcanic event. Or maybe, water washing down and sedimentation occurring over it and forming sedimentary rock over the sample, so you have a composite material. You do not date a composite material because you're going to get wildly different dates. I know that much. So if the mineral content of your rock unit is a composite material, you're already failing basic methodology. And other rock features like what? Like wind erosion? Oh, this one rock eroded more from the wind, therefore it's only 6,000 years old. Could be used to compare and correlate similar rocks in other areas. Not necessarily, but I don't know enough about geology to address that one. So I'm going to let it slide and simply express skepticism that dating a rock found, I don't know, a basalt found in a quarry in the United States and dating of similar basalt found at the peak of the Himalayas, maybe you're going to get different dates even if it's the same material because they're not in the same geographical position and there's no real good reason to believe that they would have formed at the same time in the same place from the same event. I'm just expressing my own. I know, it's a possible answer, but I don't know enough. I'm just tossing an idea out, and I'm not saying it's true absolutely as gospel. Unlike this motherfucker who lies constantly and says reality's wrong. During events detailed in Genesis, well, no, because we know that the events detailed in Genesis didn't happen. And in fact, there are two different series of events detailed in Genesis 1 and in Genesis 2 that contradict each other, meaning, which one, motherfucker? Which detailed in Genesis are you talking about? The one where humans come after plants and animals, or the second one where they come before plants? God's eyewitness account of Earth history. Eyewitness accounts are useless. God hasn't been demonstrated to exist, and if God gave you an eyewitness account of Earth history from when there were no people, you have no fucking way of verifying if it's true. So that six-word sentence right there, God's eyewitness account of Earth history, 6 words are wrong 3 different fucking ways. This is creationism for you. A simple, tiny little sentence fragment is wrong so many different fucking ways that I struggle to begin to understand how anyone could possibly want to debate these lying motherfuckers who can just throw out garbage, rapid fire, and then expect you to debunk every single fucking thing in the same amount of time. So I hope you liked that series. I'm starting to regret it. Notice how I'm not smiling. I can't tell a joke to save my life, not with a straight face. If that was a joke, I would be laughing. I would have gone like, I'm starting to regret. No, I don't even know where to... Oh, man. I knew the flood thing was coming. I was already skeptical of the honesty of this guy in part 1 when he was so casually dishonest about seemingly trivial details. But the fact that he contradicts himself, his own story, 3 different ways that I remember, maybe part 1 and 2, there's other different ways I just forgot. But the fact that just in this part he does 3 different takes with no basis in evidence, with no basis in fact, not even a basis in the fucking Bible. He just says, it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this. This one's true, no, that one's true. Which one? Pick one and stick with it. Do the fucking research. Prove your fucking case. What the fuck, dude? Mr. Snelling. I'm going to stop there. Because honestly, this level of dishonesty, I was expecting a lighthearted traipse through the disinformation of. I wasn't expecting this dumb motherfucker to contradict himself and the Bible and prove the creation myth wrong on multiple occasions and the flood myth wrong, and then say every clock started ticking at the same time. Creation, boom, but some clocks started ticking different times. And the worst part of it is that he says the only usefulness for radiometric dating is to go, this one's older than that one, like an initiative counter in D&D. I play D&D. I've said it. I've even had in my old apartment. I had a little D&D box here. It's over there somewhere. I play Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, let me just. Yeah, that's how much I play Dungeons and Dragons. The thing my camera's on is 3 Legend of Dritz books. That's what's elevating the camera up. Initiative counter. The only reason you have radiometric dating, according to this dumb motherfucker, is, oh, that one goes first, that one goes second, that one goes third. What are the ages? Who fucking cares? Oh, you had 37 initiative? Doesn't matter. The next guy had 18, he's second after you. That's the only thing he thinks. Radiometric dating, the thing that Claire Patterson used to prove lead was dangerous, that he used to measure the age of the fucking planet, he thinks, hey, it's just older than this other rock. The casual misinformation and blatant disregard for the value of science pisses me the fuck off. So I'm going to leave it there. And if you see another article in this fucking garbage that you can make sense of, because I tried going through the list of scientific articles and it's a fucking mess with nested pages inside other nested pages. If you see one you want me to try to cover, and the one that looks like it makes sense, I'll be happy to give it a shot. But for now, I'm done with this motherfucker, and he can go fuck himself.